Of course, this time of year is one of my favorite times of year for crafting, and I love creating new stockings each and every single year. It's so much fun. And this year, I'm doing some fun granny stitch stockings. This is a collection that comes with a variation of color granny work in here to get a different look for each stocking, but you can also color organize them by using certain tones of a yarn line to make them all match. Plus, they're all in that granny stitch, so they all have great texture and they all go together quite nicely. For today's stocking, we will be using the Brava Tweed worsted weight. This is 218 yards to 100 grams. I'll be using the color Wren, Mink, I think this is Boysenberry, yes, and then the Wasabi. I love these color tones together. Last year I used 3 of these for some stockings. So if you happen to make the stockings from last year, you can also make some of these to match those and expand upon what you already have when I did the granny hexagon stocking. Now for today's pattern, you will also need an H5mm hook, a pair of scissors to cut those ends, a yarn needle to weave them in, and a stitch marker to keep track of your rounds. Now you also will want a tab, and I will be creating some, and I'll show you how to do that to hang the stocking, but you can also use an I-cord if you want. And then also tassels can be fun. You can add little things onto here to dress it up a little bit, and we'll get into that as we finish off these stockings. But let's go ahead and talk about the construction. Now for each stocking that you do, we're going to start at the toe. This is a bottom up. We're going to start at the toe, and then we'll do our body color work. We'll be making space for the heel by chaining, skipping it, and coming back later. Then we'll work the top of the body, and then we'll do the ribbing, and then we'll come back and work that heel. So it's a really simplistic construction. The only thing that's going to change in between stockings is this body part. The toe, the ribbing, and the heel will remain the same for each and every single stocking in this collection. So let's go ahead and get started by working up that toe. Now to get started with the toe of the stocking, we will be creating a magic ring or magic circle, placing our crochet hook into that, and I like to start with a chain. Now I'm going to be working 8 double crochets into this circle, but the first one I'm going to do is called a stacked single crochet. If you're not familiar with that, I have a full tutorial on my blog, and I'll also be going over that a couple more times in this pattern. And so then I'll double crochet an additional 7 stitches for a total of 8 stitches in this very first round. Now after crocheting 8, you can take that tail end and pull down that center circle, and then go ahead and join to the very first stitch of this round with a slip stitch. Now if you need to, it's always kind of smart when you're turning rounds to mark the first stitch of your round with a stitch marker. That way we make sure that we're working into the correct stitches on the next round. Now I'm going to be starting round 2, and I am going to start in that very first stitch. So for the toe of the stocking, we're not going to be turning. We're just going to be working that in the round, but when we get to the rest of the stocking, we will be turning. It's up to personal preference, so if you prefer to turn for the toe, that's fine. But I'm going to start with the very first stitch as a stacked single crochet. Let me go over that with you. We're going to insert into the stitch that we're doing the stacked single crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop. We have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2. Now yeah, that was a single crochet, but we're not done. We're going to go through this far left loop. We're going to insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. So we just stacked a couple single crochets. That will count as our very first stitch, and you will want to mark the top of this so that you don't lose track of where the top of that stitch is. It's easy to work around the side of this if we're not careful. And then we're going to double crochet into the same stitch, that very first stitch that we just did, that stacked single crochet, we're going to double crochet. And then we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the remaining stitches around. And this will increase our stitch count from 8 to 16 double crochet stitches at the end of round 2. And at the end of round 2, I'm going to move my stitch marker and then slip stitch to the top of that stacked single crochet. I like to pull my slip stitches a little bit tighter. And then we're going to do a stacked single crochet into the very first stitch of this round, and go ahead and mark that. And then we are going to do a double crochet into that same stitch, and then we're going to do 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And then here's what will be our repeat around. We'll do 2 double crochets into the next, and then 1 double crochet into the next. This will increase our stitch count by 8. So we'll do 2 single crochets into the next and 1 into the next. So this means at the end of round 3, once we keep doing our repeat around, increasing every other stitch, we will have a total of 24 stitches. Now at the end of round 3, we will join to the top of the first stitch of the round. And now we're going to move on to round 4, where we are going to be increasing again. So we're going to start by doing a stacked single crochet into that very first stitch and marking it. And then we'll double crochet into the same. And then we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then now this next set will be our repeat all the way around. We will do 2 double crochets and then double crochet 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. So once again, by doing this repeat where we do 2 double crochets and then double crochet 2 stitches, we will increase by 8. And so at the end of this round, we will have a total of 32 stitches. Now at the end of round 4, we will join with a slip stitch to the top of that stacked single crochet. And then we're going to start round 5. We're going to start it with a stacked single crochet into that first stitch, and then double crochet into the same. We're going to mark that first stitch of the round, top of that stacked single crochet, so we don't lose that stitch and we can identify it easily. And now we're going to double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And then this next set will be our repeat. We will do 2 double crochets and then double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And that will be our repeat all the way around for round 5. And at the end of round 5, we will have a total of 40 stitches. And now at the end of round 5, we will join to the top of that stacked single crochet with a slip stitch. And then we are going to do a stacked single crochet into the first stitch and mark it. And this is starting on round 6. And round 6 will be the last round for the toe. And then we're going to double crochet into the same. And then we will double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And now this next set will be our repeat all the way around. So our repeat around will be to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch and then double crochet 4. And this will bring our stitch count to 48 stitches, and that will be the stitch count for our stocking. So just keep working that repeat all the way around for round 6. Now after round 6, we will be starting into our colorwork section. So we've created this toe and now we're going to be moving on to the body, but I want to talk a little bit about that. I am going to be showing this next round as the polka dot, so I don't need to change colors yet. I'll be doing the polka dot bodywork for a little while. I'm also going to show you another stocking, which is the alternating diamonds, to show you how to work that one as well. But between those 2 examples, you will have all of the information you need to work any of the granny stitch color patterns. So I won't be going through these color changes for each individual pattern. I'm going to show you the concepts to take with you to work up any color work pattern that you want, including if you do purchase the collection, there comes an empty chart where if you wanted to color in your own, you can as well. So now for the polka dot stocking, I'm just going to join at the end of round 6 and turn. There's no need for me to change yarn just yet for this pattern, but for all the others we would be changing yarn, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But first we're going to work this first round of the polka dot stocking. We are going to insert our hook into that very first stitch of the round and do a stacked single crochet, and we will be turning at the end of each round from here on out. And then we are going to work 2 more double crochets into that same stitch, and if you need to, go ahead and mark the top of that very first stitch of the round. Next, we are going to skip 2 stitches and do 3 double crochet stitches into the next stitch. And that's going to be our repeat around. It's going to be skip 2 and 3 double crochet into the next. And now our repeat around is going to be to do 3 double crochets and then skip 2. So 3 double crochet, skip 2, and then we'll do that again. 3 double crochet and skip 2. And we're going to be working that all the way around till the end. Now at the end of this round, which is round 1 of the body, we will have a total of 16 granny groups. That is groups of 3 double crochet. So 3 double crochets make up a granny group. This is not a cluster. A cluster is something different. This is a granny group. So I'm going to continue to work that repeat all the way around for round 1 for this polka dot stocking. Now that I'm at the end of round 1 of the polka dot stocking, I'm stopping on the very last stitch. So I've stopped right before the very last yarn over to complete that double crochet, and we are going to join with a new color. So this is our color C. We are going to join with the color C and pull through. And what that does is it sets us up to work with the color C in the next round. I'm always going to make sure the yarn I'm either carrying, because I'm not going to cut off color A just for this stocking right now, but also the tail ends. I'm going to keep those on the inside of the stocking. So we'll keep those on the inside. I'm going to move my stitch marker, and with this color C, I'm going to yarn over and slip stitch to join and then turn my work. Now the very first stitch in round 2 of the polka dot stocking is this color, so that's why we want to set ourselves up with it already. We're going to work into that very first space with a stacked single crochet, and you'll want to mark the top of that so that we don't lose our spot. And then we will double crochet 2 more into that space. But since we'll be changing colors for the polka dot stocking for the next stitch and going back to the color A, we're going to pull up the color A before we do our last yarn over to change colors. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the next space. And whatever color I'm not using is going to stay to the inside of the work. So now that I've done 3, we're going to go back to the color C. And then we're going to double crochet 3. Now what's happening on the back of my work here is I'm simply floating, simply carrying the yarn I'm not using on the back of my work. Now we don't want to pull that too tight. We don't want this loop here to be too tight. We're going to be working kind of over it a little bit on the next round, and I'll be showing you that. But for now, just simply gently pull up the color. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose. And we're going to join the new color and just float it across the back. We're just pulling it across the back as we pull it up to work with it. And then we'll do 3 double crochets. And this is going to be our repeat all the way around for the polka dot stocking. But no matter what stocking you're working, we change back and forth like this with colors on almost every single stocking. There's only one stocking that we're working with solid striping that we're not changing back and forth. But for instance, on this stocking, we're changing back and forth as we do some of these rounds, and some are done without changing. But no matter what stocking you're working, this is something to be conscious of. So I'm going to finish this all the way around for this polka dot stocking, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you round 3. Now at the end of round 3, I'm not changing colors, because starting on the next round we will still be working with color A. So I'm going to move my stitch marker, slip stitch to join, and turn. Now the thing about the color C is for this particular stocking, we're not going to be using it again for quite some time. If we were going to be using it again in a couple rounds, I would not fasten off. So for something like this, I carried each yarn up the inside. I did not fasten off. I never fastened off on this color. You can kind of see the inside here. So as you can see, I'm carrying up some of the colors across the inside of my work so that we don't have to fasten off. But for this stocking, since we're not carrying it up, we can go ahead and we can fasten this off to weave that in later. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I don't come back and weave these in. They're on the inside of the stocking and no one really sees them. I may not weave those in. So we're going to turn our work and we're going to start round 3 for the polka dot stocking. This is going to be worked in a solid color. So we're going to start by doing a stacked single crochet and then 2 more double crochets in that first space. And then we're just going to work the rest of this round by working 3 double crochets into each stitch all the way around. So the stitch count's not changing for the body portion of this. Now notice when I get to this next space, I want to work under anything that's floating. So any of these strands, we're going to work under those, and that will help define the granny stitch a little bit better. It pulls those strands up on the inside, hides them a little bit, decreases the amount that we see that is carried, and makes it really clean looking. So whenever you're working the next rounds, every single round pretty much at this point when you're carrying colors, when you have carried them, work underneath them, below them, into the granny stitch space, and that way you're working around them, and it really makes it a cleaner look and also less likely for you to catch your fingers on any of these strands on the inside. So I'm going to keep working this all the way around. Now at the end of round 3, I don't need to switch colors again. I can stay with the color A because the first granny group on round 4 is with color A. So I'm joining to the first stitch of the round and turning my work. Now we're going to start round 4, and we're going to start in that very first space by doing a stacked single crochet and 2 more double crochets into that space, and then mark that stitch if you need to. And now I'm going to stop on that last double crochet of the group, and we are going to go ahead and grab the color B. Now you can mix up these colors as much as you want. I have labeled them all into this color palette that I've chosen that's very pretty in this tweed holiday. But if you want to use other colors that match your decor, use maybe some blues for that snowy look, feel free to do so. But I've labeled these as color A, B, C, D to try to make it a little bit easier when it comes to reading the pattern. So now I'm going to bring in the color B and do that last yarn over with the color B, and then we're going to work the next group, the granny group, 3 double crochets with the color B, and then we'll simply change back to the color A and work the next granny group with the color A. And that's going to be our repeat all the way around for this round of the stocking, for the polka dot stocking. And at this point I have shown you all the skills that you need to know for most of these stockings. I say most of because there's one stocking that's a little bit different, so I want to review that with you. But as far as the polka dot stocking goes, the next round would just be a solid, and then we're just working every other color, changing colors as we go, and I'm using all 4 colors on this stocking, and we're going to work that through round 10. Now every single stocking on the construction is the same in terms of how many rounds we're working until we get to that heel. So we will be working a total of 10 rounds in pattern, or following the chart or the written instructions until we get to the heel, and then we'll talk about working that area to leave space for the heel later, and then working up the body. But before we start talking about that heel, I want to talk about the one pattern that is slightly different than the rest of these in terms of the skills you will need to know. And that comes down to the alternating diamonds. The reason why is we're actually skipping more stitches than we have been at this point of the concepts of the granny stitch. So far in most of these designs, we're just working every other group, changing colors, and in the alternating diamonds, we're actually going to be skipping larger areas. So I want to go over that with you. Now I've started with just the toe, and I've just finished round 6, and we're going to start working that staggered diamond design, but we're going to go to the last stitch of the round, and we're going to yarn over with our new color, and I am going to be using the color C, the color green, and we are going to join because the first color in this very next round will be starting with that green. So then we're simply going to join to the very first stitch of the round and turn. So once we've turned our work, we're going to start by working a stacked single crochet into the very first stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the same, but we will be switching colors. So we're going to stop, we're going to pull up our wren color, and notice I'm keeping the colors to the inside of my work. So now I'm changing colors where we have the inside of our work facing us, so I'm keeping my strands to the inside of the work. Then we will skip 2 and do 3 double crochets, and then we're going to work in the same color by skipping 2 and doing 3 double crochets again. And after we do this, we will change colors. So we're working 2 groups in the same color, and then we're going to carry the yarn across, changing colors, keeping it on the inside of our work. You don't want this to be too tight because you don't want it to change the sizing or have any puckering. We will be working, as we have on previous rounds, underneath these strands, so it will tuck them in later, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do not want them so tight that it changes the sizing of the stocking by pulling it in. And now we're going to skip 2 and work 3 double crochets. Skip 2 and work 3 double crochets. And then we're going to change color. So the only difference between working this staggered diamond and all the others is just the length of the float we're doing because we're working granny groups in a row. So I'm going to complete this all the way around. So we're going to skip 2 and then 3 double crochet, and then 3 double crochet again with the same color. And then we'll switch. And I'm going to keep repeating this all the way around. And this is how it's going to look on the inside of our work. We're going to have some longer floats. So for these staggered diamonds, I'm on the last granny group for this round 1. And because we're working the next round by starting with this color C, we don't have to change colors, but sometimes it's a good idea to just move the extra color to where you join. So I might just pull it over and work under it and grab it, because eventually it will be picked up again along that join area. So you can do that if you want. Otherwise you're carrying a little bit farther on the back, which isn't too big of a deal. And I'm going to turn my work. But I want you to notice as I started this, it's a good idea. I flipped my work kind of inside out. The reason why is if I was working it like this, I might pull these too tight. I might pull them across there too tight. And sometimes if you think you might do that, work that round inside out, and that will help those floats be more like the appropriate float, and that will help you out a lot. So I'm going to flip it because I'm turning. And turn my work, and now we're going to start round 2 by doing a stacked single crochet, and then 2 more double crochets into that same space. But we are going to be switching colors here, so I'm going to pull up the A color. And now for this round, we're just working every other granny group in a different color, alternating back and forth between the 2 colors. And this round will also help pick up those floats on the back side. So when you're entering your stitch, you don't really see them too much, but you kind of see them poking through those floats. You'll want to make sure that you're working underneath those on the back side so that it lessens the length of them for fingers to catch. It really helps clean things up a bit. So as I work here, I'm going to make sure I'm going underneath all the floats on the inside of the work. And we'll work this all the way around. So as you can see now on the inside, our floats are no longer as long as they once were. They're nice and tidy. We're creating new floats on this round that we will work over on the next round. And that's the concept of working across more stitches than on the other one. So this is the only one that has the longer float, but everything else is the same. So now I've given you the tools to work up this first section of the stocking. No matter which color work you're choosing, you have the concepts and the tools to change colors of yarn, follow the charts or the written instructions of whichever design you want to do until we get to that round 11 heel section, and then I'm going to come on back and show you how to do that. Now this is the polka dot stocking, and for every single stocking on round 11, we will be splitting for the heel. What that means is we're just going to make space for that heel to come back and work it later. So I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to show you how to do it in this stocking first, because we're only going to be working one color across this first round. And I'll also be showing you this on another stocking just so that we make sure that we get the basic concepts of this down with any variation. So I'm going to start by doing a stacked single crochet, and then we are going to double crochet 2 in that same space. And now I'm going to work in the next 8 spaces. So I'll have a total of 9 granny clusters before I go to my next step. So we're going to make 9 total granny clusters in this round, and then we'll go to the next step. Now, after you have worked a total of 9 granny groups at the beginning of this round, we are going to chain 22. And you don't want to chain these too tightly, but we'll chain 22. And then we are going to skip the rest of the stitches in this round, and we are going to join to the very first stitch in the round. So that stacked single crochet. Now for this one, since we're working one color, we're simply joining with the color A, because that's what we will need for the next round. But if you are working other variations, you may need to switch yarns to join if you're starting the next round with a different color. Now for round 12, we are going to turn our work, and then in this very first chain, so the very first chain from the hook, not with a slip stitch to join, but that very first chain, we are going to start by doing a stacked single crochet. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get into that first chain to get going, but we're going to do a stacked single crochet, and then we are going to do 2 more double crochets into that same chain stitch. But we will be changing to the color B once we get through this stitch, so you'll want to stop and change to the color B on, oh my gosh. Now we are going to be changing to the color B here, so we are going to want to stop on that last yarn over and grab our new color, keeping the tail end to the inside of the work, and change to the color B. And now we're going to skip 2 chains and 3 double crochet into the next chain. Now this round might take a little bit of patience because it can feel a little bit fumbly doing these stitches into the chain and having this extra weight down here. I find it helpful to set it on my lap to do this round. But we're going to be changing back and forth between the color A and the color B per granny group. We're going to be skipping 2 chains and working 3 double crochets into the next. We're going to work that all the way across the chains until we get to the very last chain of the round. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to work that and get right back into that pattern. Now after working the 3 double crochets and skipping 2, when we get to the end of these chains, there's 3 left, and we will skip 2 and 3 double crochet into that very last chain. And we'll change back to the color A. And now we're ready to work back in pattern. So in the next space, we are going to do a granny group of 3 double crochets. Change back to the color B and keep working that pattern till we get to the end of this round. And now that we are at the end of the round, I'm changing back to the color A, slip stitching to join to that first stacked single crochet, and now we're working back in pattern just like we had done down here. We'll continue to work this until there are a total of 28 rounds for the body part of this. So from here on out, we're just working here, leaving this to come back and do the heel later, and we'll work the top part of the stocking. As you can see, I've done so on this stocking. I just kept working in the round for all these zigzags. We came back and we'll work this heel later. But this is the section we're working now until we get to a total of 28 rounds for the body for all those stitches. Now I also want to show you splitting for the heel on the staggered diamonds, because this is the one that we are working more granny groups before changing color in a row, so I wanted to go over this one. So at the end of round 10, we are going to actually keep with the color A, and we are going to join and turn our work. Now for the very first stitch in this round, we are going to start by doing a stacked single crochet and then 2 more double crochets, and then we are going to be changing color. So we're going to change to our green here, our color C. And then we are going to work the 3 double crochets for the next 2 spaces. And now that we've worked the color C for 2 spaces, we're going to change back to the color A, making this not too tight, especially with that long float. And we are going to work the color A for the next 2 spaces. And then we're going to change back to the color B, and we are going to work that one for the next 2 spaces. And now we're going to switch back to the color A, and we are going to work that for the next 2 spaces. Now, no matter what stocking colorway you are working on, the main thing is we want to work the first 9 stitches of the round in the color work pattern. So we're working the first 9 stitches, keeping with that color work pattern. And then we are going to be chaining 22 and skipping the rest of the stitches in this round. So we're going to chain 22. Now after chaining 22, when it comes to joining, we do need to join with the color A, and that's where we need to fasten off. So I fastened off the color A because we left it on this other side and we don't want to carry it that long. So we're going to fasten off any colors that were left behind if this round is worked alternating colors, which there are a couple stockings that are. And we are going to slip stitch to the top of that very first stack single crochet, but I'm going to slip stitch with my new color here. That way we're set up, and I'm just going to pull that tail end through to the inside or just weave it in later for that color C. And now I'm going to turn my work, and we are all set up here to start working in the very first chain, so not the slip stitch, but the very first chain from the hook. We are going to go with a stacked single crochet into that very first chain stitch, and then 2 more double crochets. Now after working that first granny group, we're going to change back to the color A. And for this round, we're working every other granny group in a different color, but we're going to skip 2 chains and then 3 double crochet into the next. And this, once again, can feel a little bit awkward working across these chains for this very first round, but it gets easier the more fabric we build on top of this. So now we're going to switch back to the color C, skip 2 stitches, and do a granny group with the color C. Now we're going to be alternating colors as we work the 3 double crochet groups and skip 2 all the way across. And then when we have finished that repeat across these chains, we'll have 1 chain left, and I'm going to come back when we are to that point. So now I'm at that last chain, and I'll 3 double crochet into that last chain with the color A. And then we're going to go right back into pattern working in these spaces. We're going to change to the color B and go right into that space. And we'll finish out this round in pattern. So just like I had just shown on the polka dot, from here on out, it's much easier. We're back in pattern. We have completed working across those heel stitches there. And now it should go a lot easier working the top part of the body. And once again, we'll work that till we have 28 total rounds for the body of this, and then we'll come do the ribbing. Now, once you have worked this upper body portion, once again, no matter what color work you are doing it in, it is time to do the cuff. And I did all of my cuffs in the color A. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. You can do it in a different color. But I have done all of mine in the color A, so we can go ahead and join to the top here with the color A. So on this last stitch of the round, and all of these will have 28 rounds for the body, I'm simply going to go into that last stitch and yarn over with my new color and then slip stitch to join. Now we're going to be working a join as you go ribbing. You can adjust the size of your ribbing. I have done a short ribbing on all of mine, but I also included in the pattern, if you prefer making a longer one and folding it over, so those fold over cuff ribbings, I've included a stitch count for that as well. For this one, we are going to start by chaining 10. Now after chaining 10, we're going to tighten down that last chain. It's our turning chain, and we are going to single crochet in each chain across. So that will be a total of 9 single crochet stitches for the ribbing, and that will be the stitch count for every row for the single crochet stitches. Now after working 9 single crochet stitches, we are going to slip stitch in the first 2 stitches of this row, and then turn our work, and then we will skip those 2 slip stitches, and working in the back loop only, we will single crochet in each stitch across. Now it's important for this one to make sure that your single crochet stitches aren't too tight. If they are, it's really going to pull in the ribbing on the top, and for this one we don't want a negative ease. We want it to sit the same as the rest of the stocking, so we don't want to have a really tight tension here. Now that I've single crocheted in each stitch across, on the very last one, if you want, you can single crochet through both loops to make a nice clean top edge. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work again, and then we're going to be working across those 9 single crochet stitches again, working in the back loop only. But for this outer edge stitch, if you want to work through both loops, it kind of makes the top a bit cleaner. So we'll single crochet in the back loop only across all the ribbing stitches until we get to the body of the stocking. And now that we are back down to the body, we're going to work the next 2 stitches along the body with a slip stitch, turn our work, skip those 2 slip stitches, and working in the back loop only, single crochet 9. And we're going to be working this all the way around the top of the stocking until we have worked all those stitches and we're back at our very first row. And then I'm going to show you how to join the current row with the first row once we have worked all the way around this top edge, having that beautiful ribbing. Now, once you have worked all the way around, we can join these edges. Now, there are 2 ways to join, but one I find a little bit less conspicuous of a seam, and the other one's an easier seam to do. So one option is to hold these together just like this, and you'll do the same steps I'm going to show you, where you will enter the back loop only of the current row, and then the back loop only of the row farthest away from you, and then slip stitch all those together all the way down. It will leave a little bit of a slip stitch right here. It's not too noticeable, but I have found if you want it really inconspicuous, we're going to do the same thing, so chain 1, by flipping this part inside out. And you can flip your whole stocking inside out if you want to make it a little bit easier. And we are going to work through the back loops of the row closest to us, the back loop of the row farthest away and slip stitch those together. But I do find it looks better on the outside when I work it this way, but it's really personal preference. There's no right or wrong. It's just slip stitching these two edges together. Going through those back loops will work all the way down. Now once you have worked all 9 of those stitches, or if you're working one a little bit longer, once you've worked them all, you can fasten off. We'll weave in that end either now or later, and then you can see from this side that's just barely noticeable as a seam. It looks really, really nice. Now once you have worked all 9 of those stitches, or if you're working one a little bit longer, once you've worked them all, you can fasten off. We'll weave in that end either now or later, and then you can see from this side that's just barely noticeable as a seam. It looks really, really nice. Now last but not least, for crocheting this, we need to complete this heel. And what I like to do is join on the edge here at like halfway into that stitch that is on the edge. This is not going to count as a stitch, but it will make a difference if you want to lessen the gap, because we're going to be working the stitches on the bottom and the top, but we can lessen the gap here if we would like to do so. Now to get started here, we are going to be working this area, this heel area, in half double crochets. So I'm going to slip stitch to start, and then I'm just going to go right into working a half double crochet 2 together for the edge and the first stitch of this round. Now it's not actually decreasing anything, we're just decreasing the gap by doing this. So I'm going to insert my hook into that space on the edge, insert into the first stitch of the round, and then I'm just going to yarn over and half double crochet all of those together. That is one stitch. We've worked into that first stitch, but we're just kind of helping it along the corners here by doing that way. And then I'm going to half double crochet across all these bottom heel stitches until we get to the other corner. Now we're going to be working 22 total stitches across the bottom here. But what we can do when it comes to our very last stitch, we can decrease what would be a hole. I mean, you can always skip it and come back and close it later, but we're going to work into the last stitch here, so the 22nd stitch across the bottom, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then go into that side of that stitch in the corner, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through all of those together. And then we're going to repeat that all the way across the top here. So we're going to start by doing that corner stitch where we're going to insert into our corner, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And then we're going to insert into the very first stitch over here. Now these ones are a little bit harder to see. They're not as defined because we're working into the chain stitches, but we'll be working 22 across the top part too. So here's our first one. And then I'm going to work half double crochets into the next 2 chains, and then into the bottom of the chain here too. So we're going to be working 22 across. But if you work until your very last stitch, I'm also going to do that special corner decreasing on the last stitch as well. So here I am at the end of the round. I've marked the first stitch here, and we are going to once again work into that very last stitch, but then also grab some from the corner and then half double crochet that together. And now we're ready to start round 2. So we have a total of 44 half double crochet stitches around the heel right now. I'm going to slip stitch to join, and then for this I'm going to turn my work. I have found with heels, I've done a lot of them over the years and sometimes they drive me crazy, but I've found recently by turning it helps the heel lay a little bit flatter, because when I work in the round it tends to kind of fold in and bunch up more. So you can work this in the round without turning, but I'm going to turn because I kind of like the look of it. So we are going to start by doing a chain 1, and then we're going to half double crochet 2 together for the very first 2 stitches, and this is an actual decrease for this round. And then place your stitch marker into that first stitch of the round, And then we are going to do half double crochets for 18 stitches. Now after half double crocheting 18, we're going to half double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to repeat everything we just did one more time. So the repeat is to do half double crochet 2 together, half double crochet 18, and then half double crochet 2 together in the last 2 stitches of this round. And now that we are to the last 2 stitches of round 2, we'll half double crochet 2 together. Now this will decrease our stitch count to 40 stitches. So we went from 44 to 40 stitches, and now we are going to join to the first stitch of the round and turn our work. Now for round 3, we're going to be doing some repeating. We're just going to be decreasing the stitches each round. So I'm going to start by doing a chain 1 and then half double crocheting the first 2 stitches together. So half double crochet 2 together and mark that stitch. And now we're going to half double crochet 16, and then we'll half double crochet 2 together again. And now after half double crocheting 16, we will do a half double crochet 2 together. And then we're going to repeat that again on the opposite side of the heel. So that will be 2 half double crochet 2 together, half double crochet 16, and then half double crochet the last 2 together to complete round 3. Now for round 4, after round 3, we're going to join and then turn our work. And then for round 4, we're going to start with a chain 1 and half double crochet 2 together, placing that stitch marker. And then we will half double crochet 14 and then half double crochet 2 together. And we'll repeat that again on the top side. So we're doing half double crochet 2 together, half double crochet 14, half double crochet 2 together, and then repeat that again for round 4. Now at the end of round 4, we're going to join, turn our work, chain 1 and half double crochet 2 together, place that stitch marker, and then we're going to be half double crocheting 12. So we're just following what we have similarly done in previous rounds. It's just we're doing less in between the double crochet 2 or half double crochet 2 togethers because we're decreasing here. So we'll half double crochet 2 together, half double crochet 12, half double crochet 2 together, and then repeat that on the other side of that heel. Now for round 6, and this will be our final round. We've joined and turned, and this is once again going to be similar to what we've done. We can chain 1 and half double crochet 2 together, mark that stitch, and then half double crochet 10 and then half double crochet 2 together, and then repeat that again. Now after round 6, we will slip stitch to join to the first stitch of the round, and then we can fasten off, leaving a long tail because we will need that tail to seam this heel. Now grab your yarn needle, and we are going to take this heel and fold it in half with the sides that we need to seam together. Now because I'm right-handed here, I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to seam from right to left. And I'm simply going to take my yarn needle and we're going to go down a stitch. We're just going to grab the corners here to secure them. And I'm just going to work back and forth. You can do a whip stitch. You can do whatever stitch you want. I'm just going to go back and forth to seam this together, especially with this tweed yarn. It really hides your seams well. And this will be folded in a different, like it's not going to lay like this. It'll be folded slightly different. So there's really, you don't have to be picky about it. Now once you have worked all the way across, now we're just simply going to put the heel where it should be. So kind of fold it and it should look good. If you see any gaps or holes, feel free to use the end of your yarn to weave those in, but it should for the most part look pretty good. And now we have the heel done. So now that we've got our stocking crocheted, there's a few like finishing touches that will make this look extra nice. I have these tabs I purchased from Etsy. I would list the shop, only the shop no longer exists, which makes me super sad. I haven't even been able to find them on their own website. But there are a lot of companies on Etsy that will make customized tags, or you can also find cute little tags sometimes from your local craft store. I like to use these brads to attach them to the front of the stocking, and I've also kind of chosen a leather tab that matches. So after you've done any type of tabs you want, we definitely need a tab for hanging this stocking. This is a faux leather strip I got from the craft store. Sometimes you can even buy packets of real leather. And I just cut it to the dimensions that I wanted. I cut several of these for the stocking. The next thing I'll need to do is create some holes, and I have a leather hole punch to do so. So we'll just simply be punching. I like to do 2 holes on each side, one above the other. I just like the look of it. Honestly, you can do whatever you want to do. And I'll do that on the other side of this leather. And then we will be using a little bit of thicker brads. And I bought a pack of them where there's a lot of different sizes. I love it. To attach this, once I punch holes on the other side, to attach this to the side of the stocking. So we'll simply stick these brads all the way through. And then you just take the back of it and push it on. And then now we have a tab to hang our stocking from. Now I want to make some big tassels to hang from the edge of this here. You don't have to do this part. It's just an accessory that's kind of fun. So I have this clover tassel maker, and we're going to walk through the steps of making this tassel. Now before I get started on making the actual tassel, I have these beads here, and I want to make the strand that will go into the tassel first, and I'm going to be using this string. This is a twine style string. I feel like it just adds more character to the stocking. Now the first thing we will want to do is take a decent amount, probably longer than we need, and go ahead and cut it. And then we're going to match these up evenly, and we're going to string these beads onto here, but it is really hard to do that. So we'll want to grab a needle and thread that's much smaller, and we'll go up through the bead, around the edge of the twine, and back down. And that way we have a way to pull the bead from the thread onto that twine. We're going to do that for all of the beads across. And now once we have all of our beads on here, we will want to tie a knot, several knots actually, and we'll want to tie a knot so that the top part of this can loop around, and it's gonna sit just fine. So I'm gonna do a knot here. Pull that down, and this will be the opening I want to hang it onto the stocking. Then I'm going to slide a bead down, and now I'm going to tie a knot in between the next 2 beads. So I'm going to get that knot right up against the bead on this side. So we're just going to tie a knot. We're going to slide that knot as close to that first bead as possible. Slide up this knot, or that bead, tie another knot. And now that we have this decorative part of this strand, because this is the strand that our tassel is going to hang from, we want to tie a really big knot down here at the bottom. And that will go and sit inside of the tassel, so that it doesn't pop out, which means I like to kind of tie a few knots around each other. That way it's a really big knot that won't pull through the top of the tassel. Now we are going to set this aside for just a moment, and it's time for us to go ahead and start creating this tassel with the Clover Tassel Maker. So we're first going to take our strand, and we are going to hook it on the back over here. There's a area right here for your strand to go into that you can tighten it down into there. And then I'm going to be wrapping around and around and around. And for these tassels, I'm making them pretty big. They're kind of monsters, to be honest. So you don't have to make them as thick as mine. You can wrap 25 times, 30 times. I wrapped 50 times around to make the big tassels. So we'll just keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Now once you have wrapped, you can hook this around the back of the other side and pull down, and that tightens it. And then we're going to go ahead and fasten off. And then we're going to get another strand of yarn, and this is going to work for our center tie. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to take this string to hold it from, and we're going to put that down into the center and sticking that knot right down into the center of all those yarn strands. And then we are going to be tying our string across here, across the center of this. So I'm going to take it from the back to the front, just around the strands. And then we are going to tie it down, keeping the big knot underneath here. Kind of tuck it in a bit more. And we're just going to tie as tight as we can. And I like to tie it on this side and then flip it over and tie it on the other side. So we're going to tie that tight. Then I'm going to take my string to the other side. And I like to tie it on the back side as well, just to make sure that's really secure. And a lot of times I can get it a little bit tighter on this side, so it kind of scrunches that in even a little bit more, because we want to make sure that it's holding that center tassel string in there. And now that we have done that, that's pretty secure inside of there. We're going to go ahead and take our scissors and we're going to cut the top. There's a little groove here. We can cut all those strands. And then we're going to flip it over, pulling all those strands down. We're going to go ahead and do that for this side as well. And now we're going to hold the strand up and move some of these strands around. And we can see our tassels almost done. I like to play with it a little bit, getting those strands to look as good as possible coming out of the center there. And then we have to do a couple more steps to finish this off. Now here's where we are going to grab some twine. You can use yarn for this step, but I love using the twine. We're going to place the top edge of this. We're going to bring it down and then fold this around, pinching this part right here with our thumb. And then we're going to wrap it around the top. And this first pull is where we're going to be putting this. As you can see, this will be the top part of our tassel, so make sure your string looks really good. And then we're going to pull that tight. And we're going to keep wrapping around a few times. Now once you've wrapped the top of that as many times as you want, hold it securely. I'm pinching the front and the back, and I'm going to cut this twine, and then I'm going to take this end and go through that loop that we have here, and then we're going to pull the top part of this, pulling both ends, and we're going to make that knot go on the inside there. So we'll go right underneath where we were wrapping so you can't even see it. Now we're going to pull tight again, just making sure it's secure. This side can just tuck in, you won't ever see it, or you can cut it a little bit shorter. For this part, we're going to grab a crochet hook and we're going to pull it down and through. So we're going to bring our crochet hook up the bottom here. We're going to grab that twine, and then we're going to pull just that twine, loop it around there, and pull that twine down through the bottom. And then we can cut this one a little bit shorter, and it will hide on the inside of our tassel as well. And now the next steps we need to do are to even out the bottom of this to make it look really nice. And one way I like to do that is to just grab a piece of cardstock and wrap it around. And this will help it get a really even cut. You can guess with your fingers if you want. And I don't need every strand to be perfect. I just want the bottom part of this to be clean. So I'm going to pull it down. Push that paper close together if you can. And then this is where we're going to grab our scissors and we are going to cut the bottom of this tassel even. And now I take this off. It's nice and even and clean. I really like this tassel. It's really fun to make. It's optional. You don't have to do this. I just think it's a nice accessory for the stocking. So now we can go ahead and place that around the top of the tab and it will just hang down and you can display your stocking. Now, one last thing I like to mention, because I've had people ask me how I get my stockings to hang looking so like crisp and nice, and that's just a piece of old cardboard. When I have an Amazon box come, I simply cut it the shape of the stocking and put it inside so that it makes it perfectly formed. And just like that, you have 7 stocking patterns to choose from one great instructional pattern. I can't even really fit all these on the screen. Each one is stunning in its own right. And who knew? It's the same stitch counts. It's the same stitches. All we're doing for each one is changing the color work. So it's really fun to work up. It doesn't get boring. You're not making the same stocking a million times. You can choose from different designs so that you can make one for everyone in their family that is unique. Now, I've also included with the paid PDF a color your own chart in case you want to get adventurous or switch out the colors, because you could do a different color theme than this. You don't have to stay with those traditional colors. You can use blues and purples and pinks and whatever you want. Thank you so much for joining me for this fun holiday project. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and come back for more fun projects soon.